And we are live for the Steelers Depot live stream here on Monday, October 18th. As always, I am Alex Kozora. Alongside me is Dave Bryan. Appreciate you guys being here today. As always, Dave and I here for the next hour answering any and hopefully all Steelers questions as they get another victory 23-20 in overtime Sunday night against the Seattle Seahawks. Dave, how you doing?
Doing good. Are you getting your second wind or your third wind or fourth
Fourth
wind?
wind or fifth wind, and maybe falling asleep here midway through. But yeah, good to be back with you guys. If you guys could just let us know if you hear Dave and myself in the chat, I think you guys can. But if there's any sort of issue with the video or the audio, please let us know. As always, Dave and I will take the questions in order the best that we can. If you want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered by Dave and myself, be sure to send us a super chat, and you will move to the front of the line. So. Without
Correct answers cost more, right?
Correct answers cost more. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll start things off here. I think there was one earlier, but again, the YouTube chat seems to cut questions off that come in, hours ago. But the first one here that I see, at least, comes from John Pennington, who says, "Dave and Alex, do you think the players in the secondary are afraid to tackle and wrap players up, or not physical enough?" I say both. What do you guys think? No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, the guys who struggled. I mean, everyone struggled yesterday, but the guys who struggled the most, Terrell Edmonds is not a guy that is contact adverse or shy or something like that. It's just usually a matter of technique or trying to do too much or not playing with correct leverage. So I generally find that missed tackles are much more of a technique issue than a want-to issue for most players. For some, it can be a problem, the want-to aspect of it. But for most of those guys that have played in the system that are generally good tacklers like Minka, it's usually more of a technique issue. Maybe guys trying to do too much.
Yeah, I don't think any of them were afraid to tackle or anything like that. Just bad technique and bodies fly, diving at people's legs. Joe Hayden missed a couple, and I mean, there was like we said on the podcast this morning. Josh Carney's going to have his hands full. I forgot to look at the PFF totals on
Yeah,
that,
I
by the
mean, feel
way,
free if
and
you want to look it up if you have a chance now. I'm
yeah.
sure it's 15-20, and missed tackles can be a little subjective, so their number versus Josh's number can be a little bit. We always trust, of course, what Josh has to say, but it ain't gonna be pretty.
Yeah, let's see here. They have Minka for oh wow. Minka for 3,
Mm.
Edmonds for 2, Bush for 2, Sutton for 2, Hayden for 2, Bugs for 1, Highsmith 1, and Schobert for 1. They have 14 missed tackles in total for that game. PFF does.
It's sad when I hear that and go, "That's it? Oh, that's not so bad." When you felt like it might have been worse than that, but yeah, I'm sure Josh will be somewhere in that. Josh also includes special teams, so that number is probably
Right.
gonna take up a little bit as well. But yeah, so like I said, about 15 missed tackles in one game, just a very ugly number, obviously. But I don't think it's they weren't physical enough or weren't willing to tackle John. I wouldn't agree with that assessment or question. John Horvat says, "Hey Alex and Dave, thanks for being here." John says, "Interesting question I had. If you had to choose only one to be on your team, who are you choosing? T.J. Watt or Troy Polamalu?" Man, there are no wrong answers here. Troy's a Hall of Famer. T.J. Watt's going to join him in Canton someday, probably first ballot, just like Troy was. I'm still going to go Troy though. Just something about him was just even more special, just more unique with this game. Maybe it was the hair, I don't know, but maybe because he also just played in more space, so in some sense, was more value of a guy that can cover more than a guy that can rush the passer. Though obviously both are very very valuable. So I'll go Troy, but no wrong answers here.
Yeah, I would go Troy too, just for the sheer fact that which one gives you the best chance likely to score, maybe,
Yeah,
that would probably be Troy. Now, look, you obviously like guys that can get after the quarterback, and if there's one thing that we've learned about T.J. Watt throughout the years here right now is not only can he get after and sack the quarterback, he can force some fumbles as well too. But I think from a pure the value of a takeaway standpoint. I think you'd have to go with Troy because not only Troy give you probably the higher probability of getting a takeaway, uh, once again he could probably take it to the house for you on top of it there, and that's not me disrespecting T.J. Watt at all. I
sure.
just think if you're gonna ask me a question like that and ask me to choose between those two, I would choose Troy for the sheer fact that I think he could get you more turnovers and he could potentially put a few of them in the end zone.
Yeah, you can do a little bit more. Just depends who your DC is as well. Dick LeBeau was such a great compliment to Troy with the system that they ran. So if you had a DC that wasn't as creative or willing to be creative, then you might actually go TJ Watt. But if you had somebody like a Dick LeBeau, like a Wink Martindale, that's really going to get exotic with some of that stuff, then I think you would go Troy. So it might depend on your coaching staff as well in this hypothetical. If you guys could please also like the live stream, that would help us out a lot to get more viewers into the chat as well. Next question comes from Mike Adesso, a faithful of the Steelers Depot live streams and over on Twitter. Says, "Hi guys, happy Victory Monday. Happy Victory Monday to you, Mike. So if when Tuitt comes back, I assume it'll be him, Cam, and Wormley in base. How would they line up as Wormley replacing Alu? Dave, how would you tackle that question? What will the base defense, the front, look like if and when Stephon Tuitt comes back? Let's assume he comes back."
Yeah, I'm not so sure they'd put Wormley in the middle though.
Right.
Just not really. Yeah, he's better. He's a better fit. From a 3 to 3 eye to 4 eye 5 technique, right around in there. I suppose you could try it, but I just worry about just the lack of experience that he has over the playing the 0 and the 1 in general. It'll be interesting to find out for sure. Look, we don't know what's going on with Bugs. I think, didn't you find that maybe we have a new member of the groin club?
He pulled something. I mean, he hobbled off. He did not return to that game based on my charting. He did not
Okay.
return. Henry Mondo became the new number 3 nose tackle with Carlos Davis out. Yeah, I think Bugs has a groin or something going on with him.
All right, and Carlos Davis looks like he's ready to return after the bye week here. So if Bugs can't go, I would think that uh, you know it would either be either Davis, I think, or Bugs, whichever one's healthy, and then Tuitt and Hayward with making sure you rotate in enough Wormley on top of it. I'm not saying you can't use Wormley in the middle. It's just it doesn't seem like that would be a specialty of his.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. I think when Tuitt comes back, assuming that he does, it'll be Tuitt at left defensive end, Bugs at nose tackle. I'm pretty confident Bugs will be the starter at nose tackle in terms of the rundown type stuff. Carlos Davis, more of a sub package rotational guy who's better in nickel and dime because he's a better pass rusher, more explosive, better athlete than Isaiah Bugs. And then Cam Hayward, of course, at right defensive end with Wormley backing up both Tuitt and Hayward as really quality defensive end depth there. Let me go back to the chat. Chat's being weird. I got a weird lost connection thing, but you guys still hear us, right? Dave, you can still hear me.
I hear you.
All right, let me know if there's any issue because this thing bugged out for a second here. But I think we are back. Next question. More of a comment here about Devin Bush from Tim Chases. Remember, Bush was the answer to losing Shazier, moved up to get him, and there was almost zero splash. Yeah, Dave and I have a long conversation about him, I think, in the email section of today's podcast. So maybe go back and listen to that, Tim. Yeah, you certainly want to see more splash from Devin Bush. You haven't seen that. I mean, the first thing this season was him getting healthy and being available. I think we've kind of are past that point, and so you want to see some of the bigger plays from Devin Bush, and did not think he had a good game on Sunday.
Yeah, it's just one of the the things that I highlighted before the draft with him. I didn't hate him. The athleticism was certainly there on the tape, especially the sideline stuff. Just one of my fears was where are the playmaking? Where's the playmaking at with him? And this was really his final couple of years there at Michigan as well too, because Lord knows you and I scoured that tape because we had a couple of good pre-draft conversations on the podcast about him as well too. That's what I think what we're looking for, and I think you kind of hit it on the head, Alex. Is there some sort of you know processing from the C to do type
Hmm.
part with him that's not allowing him to process quick enough to make some of these plays? Is it more reactionary? Is he still having to think too much? As part of this defense here as well too. Look, he better get busy now. All right, he's coming up on, let's see, this was week 6, so it was week 6 last year that he suffered that knee injury, I believe, against Cleveland there.
Mm.
So we've got a full schedule behind us now. So it's time for him to start getting way past that knee injury now and start becoming a playmaker, because the Steelers got to make a decision on this 5th-year option, I believe, this next offseason here.
Hmm.
And from where I sit right now, I'm not sure if he gets it, Alex. And I've gotten a lot of kind of angry emails, when talking about that. But there has not been enough there yet to make me convinced that the Steelers will slam dunk pick up his 5th-year option. There's still time. He's still got the rest of this season, but he better get busy.
Yeah, you're right. And to your credit, you've been talking about that since the summer, basically about Devin Bush's
Hello?
future. Can you hear me? Oh, wait. Can you hear me now?
I got you.
I'm bad. I muted Skype to clear my throat, which I don't think even worked because I hit the wrong button. But I'm back now. But I think the chat was hearing me because I had the wrong button pushed. But anyway, to your point, I'll reiterate. To your credit, Dave, you've been talking about Devin Bush since the summer and his future with the team. And so, obviously, I wanted to give him some grace and recognize he was coming back from the ACL. But you're right, that 1 year anniversary is coming up. And so, has it actually already passed? It's been 1 year since his injury.
Yeah, well, it was I don't know
Week
what
five, week
what it is
6.
on the calendar, but I know it was week 6 against the Browns, right?
Yeah, so we're right at a year out, and he's back and he's healthy, and that's good. But you need more than that, obviously, if you want to pick up the option. That's the first step, but it's far from the last one.
Actually, today is the anniversary of,
Is it?
believe it or not, October 18th of last year against the Browns. So it was exactly 1 year ago today that he suffered his injury.
And I guess technically the surgery happened a week later, so his clock starts maybe a week from today or something like that. But point taken. Lumberzack 94. Hey, Dave and Alex. Victory Monday. Victory Monday indeed. Lumberzack. I'll take it even if it's ugly. I will do the same. My question pertains to Carlos Davis. Firstly, why wasn't he put on IR after week 1? Also, Bugs or Davis on your own depth charts. Kind of answered that question a second ago. The latter question, I would take Bugs. In terms of him being the base nose tackle, Davis is more the sub package pass rusher. Yeah, I kind of wondered the same. Why he didn't go on the injured reserve. Maybe it was a more minor thing, and they thought they could get him back quicker than they did, and then just decided not to do it because they didn't have anyone else they wanted to call up. But yeah, it's a little curious. That's a fair point.
Yeah, it might have been one of them, I don't know, meniscus things or something like that, where they thought maybe 3 weeks he'd be good, or along those lines. So I mean, it's impossible to really answer that, not knowing what they found, what they did, what they didn't
Right.
do, those kind of things. There, if they had to do it all over again. Would they put him on IR? Probably, but once again, you're still at a minimum are going to need 5 inactive players every week, and then depending on if you bring any, elevate anybody up from the practice squad, or along those lines there. So maybe they never ran into a situation where they thought that they needed, at least early on in the process, needed that roster spot, and then once they made it through about 2 weeks and not having to have that roster spot, they probably said, okay, well, just wait now, because if we put him on IR, then that's 3 weeks he has to
Right.
miss. So really impossible to kind of answer the why, though, without knowing more specifics.
Yeah, I couldn't give you a great answer either. Heath Stark says, "Hi guys, my friend who is a big time Dallas Cowboys fan and is knowledgeable watched his first full Steelers game this year last night. He asked me, 'Wow, I thought they were being slept on by the national media. Then in the second half they fell apart. What's wrong with them?' I told him a lot of inexperience, new parts coupled with an old aged Big Ben. Was I correct?" Yeah, I think that's partially true. It's also just life of being a Steelers fan. These victories are very rarely easy and comfortable and cruising start to finish. That seems to happen more for other teams, or maybe we're just so focused on it in Pittsburgh. But rarely, good times are bad, good seasons are not. Are these victories ever that comfortable? But yeah, it was just, I mean, his run defense was really poor in the second half, at least the third quarter in that one. And the offense kind of got out of rhythm, and they couldn't, they weren't converting on third down quite as often and finishing drives off in the end zone and things like that. So specifically, I think those are some of the issues, the run defense in particular. But yeah, I mean, it's always a roller coaster when you're rooting for the Steelers.
Yeah, look, I mean, the offense is still having problems pushing the football down the field consistently. You look at the intended air yards versus completed air yards for Roethlisberger yesterday. Anytime you have a completed air yards of less than 4, that's not good. The intended air yards was only like 6.5, I think. Now, yeah, those numbers tend to get watered down a little bit the more attempts you had. And once again, he had 40 in that game. But the big thing that sticks out is he only had one completion of 20 air yards or more, and that was that cover 2 hole shot over to the left side to Diontae Johnson there. And uh, this has been, this isn't new, but for this team, the way it's put together right now, the way the defense isn't elite. It definitely did take the step back that we thought, that at least Alex and I thought it was going to take. The pass defense needs to start playing a little bit better, and then you just can't have those long lapses like you have like you had yesterday in that run defense as well too. So in order for this team to continue to win games, They're going to have to ugly them out, I think.
Yeah.
Like they did. You can't have turnovers, and thankfully, did they have any turnovers yesterday? I don't think. No, they did have the
The
one.
the Ben fumble.
The Yeah, the Ben fumble there. But you better limit your turnovers to at least one, and you better be getting it back on the other side of the football. You better have a successful run rate of at least around 50% or better, and you better your defense better at least keep the opposition to around 20 points or less, and that's a lot of you betters, but that seems to be the recipe, if you will, for a Steelers win
Mhm.
this season.
I agree with that, but that's the point that you made at the end there is that that margin of error becomes very thin that you got to do like X, Y, Z and the rest of
Right.
the alphabet right. Otherwise, you're not going to win the game. You're not someone that can play with a couple mistakes and still win ball games, and that's a concern going forward, obviously.
I mean, I know there's you could go to around the NFL
Sure.
every week and look at games and say if that batted ball, or if that, if the quarterback, if the easy interception, if that's made, how would that turn the tide? That happens probably in nearly every game around the NFL. But how many times now have we seen this the last couple of weeks with Ben getting away with a couple, if you will,
Mhm.
on it. Yesterday the batted ball that thankfully Chase Claypool came from behind and knocked out, and then the other one that almost got stuck in Jamal Adams' face mask there on top of it there. So this team's got to be able to run the ball consistently like they have. Look, I mean, Najee Harris is over 50% run success rate right now. So,
For the season.
and for the season, yeah,
Wow. And that was after he started the first 3 weeks at 35% probably?
right, right. So, I mean, and that's like, I know it hasn't been great from a yards per carry probably standpoint or a yards per game standpoint, but it just goes to show you how important successful runs are, you
Mhm.
know? Even if it's okay, you need it's second and 4, and you only get 2 yards on second down. Well, that's a successful run because it's 50% of the needed yardage in that situation there. Successful run rates are really carry their weight, in my opinion. I think you're seeing that so far, and that's really played a big part, especially these last 2 weeks, of why the Steelers have won back-to-back games now. The thing that you'd like to see, and I don't know if it's going to change, is Ben being able to connect, that extra one or two times down the field for chunk plays, because obviously Najee is not the kind of guy that's going to deliver you chunk plays on the ground. He did not do that at Alabama, and I think it's a little much to ask for him to on a weekly basis deliver that home run on the ground there.
Mhm.
So you got to keep running the ball at the successful run rate they've been running it at. You cannot turn the football over, and you got to have your defense playing well.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be the mantra and the plan the rest of the season. Next question comes from our buddy Mutated Genome. Says when the D was getting gashed in the run game coming out of the half, why did it take them so long to get out of the two high safeties to stop the bleeding? They waited till they tied the score. WTH. Again, I haven't gone through the tape yet, really at all. I'm going to do that a little bit later tonight to see some of those run defense issues. I think there were more issues up front with the defensive line and the linebackers, not getting stuck on blocks or taking false steps and things like that, missing tackles, rather than it being an issue of too high or not. I mean, when we say too high, there were some examples where Edmonds might be 6 yards off the ball, and so he's not like right in the box at the line of scrimmage, but he can come downhill and play the run once he gets his run key. So it wasn't like they were playing those guys 15 yards deep. And sometimes there were 11 personnel, so there's maybe passing personnel that you have to account for as well. And I know one answer probably is that they were concerned about getting beat by Lockett and Metcalf and giving up a big play that would allow Seattle to quickly get back into that game. So there's a couple different layers to it, but I don't know if that alone or that is like the big concern I have about this run defense or lack of run defense in the third quarter.
Missed tackles obviously didn't help, and then look, even on that third down play, that who was the kid? Who was the kid that ran on that one?
On that 3rd and 7.
You're right.
I
I
forget
just
it was the
wrote it up.
backup running back. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah,
Was it Homer? Was it Travis Homer?
Homer.
Okay.
Homer. That's it. And what was it, 26 yards there, and 3rd and 7. I mean, even TJ Watt admitted we had our ears pinned back on that play, and
Right.
they ran that tackle guard wrap around, if you will, on that one, and kind of really caught the Steelers by surprise on that one. And once that hole opened up, I mean, it was clear, clear running lane for at least 15 yards for 15 of that 26 yards on that. That's not an excuse, but I mean that's where 20 of that came from. And I think they had 144 net yards on the ground, and a good chunk of that came right there in those two drives. Open up the third quarter there, and then really on into late into the third quarter as well too. The funny thing about it is once they gave up that big run, I didn't realize this. Once they gave up that big run to Homer, I think their next 7 runs was something like what I write, 28 yards or what? No, I think it was even less than that. In fact, I got it right here. It says, luckily, let's see, just 16 yards on their
Mm,
next set on the Seahawks' next 7 carries after they gave up that big run to Travis Homer, and that big run to Travis Homer was the final play, I believe, of the third
hmm
quarter there. So they tightened up after that, thank God. They did, but yeah, that third quarter was miserable, and I've just started scratching the surface on the defensive side of football to look at maybe gap soundness and all like that. But the tackling wasn't good, and I think we're going to find some gap assignment issues
Yeah.
in there as well too.
Agreed. The tackling was the number one reason why this defense allowed Seattle back into this game to tie things up. Got a question here from Raged EA2 and Danny W, both with similar questions about Diontae Johnson. Rage says Deontay led the league in drops last year. Now he's Pittsburgh's top receiver. Do you think Claypool could make the same improvements if he hits the jugs machine? I don't know if Claypool's issue or like the hands issue that Johnson had last year. I think it's just an overall consistency, kind of playing to your size and frame thing that Claypool has to deal with, winning vertically more often. So I don't think it's if Claypool magically gets on the jugs machine, and of course he is, I'm sure, points throughout the season anyway, is going to transform him the way it did Deontay, which was more of a mental block, kind of the weight of the drops and things like that that added up last season. But Claypool does need to be a more consistent player and kind of play to the physical tools he's been blessed with.
Yeah, look, this is a guy that was known at Notre Dame mostly for what? Contested catches down the field. And while we did see some of that last year, and we saw him draw some pass interference penalties last year, on top of it, we're not getting that this year. And then on top of it, you're seeing some miscommunication issues. You see that miscommunication yesterday on, I think Ben expected a back, Claypool to expect the black back shoulder on that one
Hmm.
over on the left side over there. And then you have Claypool down the field getting the offensive pass interference on a real key 2nd and 5 play later in that game that really kind of turned, you know, really took the momentum away from the Steelers at that point. They, didn't. I think the drive. I think they ended up getting a field goal on that drive, but they sure could have used that to be buried on down into the end zone and run out the rest of the clock at that point, and maybe avoid overtime there. But we're just not seeing him get consistent separation down the field and stacking, and then on top of it, he's not catching those contested balls like he was last season.
Yeah, need to see better from Chase Claypool. Just too much variance, too much up and down in this game right now. Danny W, and I think another reader had a similar question too, is saying, will Deontay Johnson stick in Pittsburgh? He says, I personally love him and his abilities. He has the chance to change the game himself. I mean, we those questions don't have to be answered now, and even this offseason, they won't have to be answered. But
I'm willing to bet he's not. I mean, it's
you still think
just
he's not? I think he
I
is. I mean, if he
I
maybe
don't
if he maybe answered, what more does he have to do to earn that extension? He's bounced
I
back from
just
last year. The hands are a lot better, obviously.
they just, unless he takes away under market value. I mean, if he look, I mean, he there's there's not many more wide receivers than him in the league. I mean, there are, but there are that are able to get the separation off the line that he has,
Hmm.
and I mean, he really is a good separator. He's very good off the line. He's right now he's the Steelers' best deep threat. On top of it, I mean, and if he limits these drops the way he has so far this season, he continues to progress as a route runner. uh, he's going to be up there near, probably looking to get top 10 receiver money, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think he'll get paid handsomely, but I don't know
I
if the Steelers would be,
I don't
like,
think he's.
opposed to doing that.
I don't think the Steelers are going to give it to him. I really don't.
So, I mean, if he plays well, he's gonna price himself out of Pittsburgh. If he doesn't play well, then they're not gonna obviously offer it to him because he's not playing well enough. So, I don't know. I just feel like the Steelers aren't gonna close that door and just say there's no possibility we're gonna bring you back because he's a good player and he's gonna help out whatever rookie quarterback is the future of this team whenever that time comes.
Yeah, I don't see him as. I mean, no disrespect to him, but he's not AB, right?
No, he's not AB, of course. But
Right.
AB also got top one money, and so I think it'll be a little, obviously it'll be cheaper to afford Deontay.
Yeah, I'll just go on record right now from where I sit right now, thinking that he won't be re-signing with the
Yeah.
Steelers.
And I mean, maybe. I mean, obviously, he could walk and go somewhere else if some team throws a bunch of money at him, which is certainly possible. But I don't like to even think about those questions too much middle of the season because the conversation now versus how the conversation looks in January is going to be totally different. And these aren't decisions that have to be made. It's not the off season. These contracts not up now. So, these are all kind of hypothetical to me. Dawson how do I say this? Mancabelli? Dawson Mancabelli, I think I said that correctly. Says Dave Alex, did y'all see a secondary player from Oklahoma, late round pick no less, performing this well this early? Trey Norwood. Yeah, Norwood, you know, he was impressive in camp. You could tell they had something with him, a really smart, instinctual guy with good ball skills is going to generally find a home in the NFL. It was about could he be a more consistent tackler and a more physical player, and he certainly showed really good signs of that last night. And so this team's been high on him for his football IQ and his smarts. He was a very versatile player, the Swiss Army knife, as Tomlin announced him when they made him the draft pick. So he's carved out a good role, and they've kind of, I think, scaled back his role a bit from where it was week one into kind of just more dime packages to probably simplify things for him. So he's not playing a ton, but he's certainly making those snaps count. And so, yeah, I think, he's ascending and playing well as his role's kind of been reduced to something probably a little more manageable for him.
Look, I don't want to take anything away from the game that he played. It was an outstanding, outstanding game for the snaps that he played. Three very big third down stops there, but it was one game,
True.
So we got to keep that in perspective as well too. And he didn't really play all that many snaps overall, right? And how many of those were they all dime or what?
Yes,
You
they were
charted it,
all
right?
all dime snaps. I don't know the exact number. It was probably however many dime snaps they had, 10, 15, but all in dime.
All right. Here's the thing. Uh, be happy that he's got that role now, and looks to be excelling in it. But on top of it, it was just one game on top of it. It was a good one, but we got to, let's put it in perspective here.
Yeah, that's good perspective indeed. Todd Skolkowski says, "Is James Washington still injured, or has McLeod moved past him on the depth chart?" What's your take, Dave, on Washington McLeod?
Yeah, yeah, be interesting. I haven't seen anything yet that tells me that he got injured. And really, I think you said on the podcast you saw him out there. Did you say in really kind of in successive plays early on? Because I didn't see that when I was going back through it. I saw a lot of Ray early, and then Washington mixed in for a couple plays here, and then another couple plays there. I never saw an instance, and I'm not saying it's not the case where he was injured or anything like that.
All
It
right.
very well could have been a case. What I think wound up happening there is uh, they use more two tight ends, obviously, in this one, a lot more 12 personnel, and then on top of it, there, I think I don't think they want to play Claypool a lot in the slot, and I think Ben pretty much told us that was going to be the case this past week when he talked to the media. I disagree with it.
Hmm.
Uh, I personally I would like to see less of Ray McLeod in the slot, and the only way to do that until you get a guy like Anthony Miller or somebody up off the practice squad is to put Chase Claypool in there. So unless James Washington aggravated that groin, and we don't know if that was the case or not, that's the only the only thing I can think of is we saw more two tight end situations, and the plan was to use Ray much more in the slot there over a guy like Claypool.
It appeared that Washington had played early in this game. That was kind of my takeaways. That I saw Washington early. He caught a pass for 9 yards, and then I basically didn't see him at all in the second half or overtime. Did you, Dave? I didn't see him at all, like later in the game.
I was just looking for those first 2 series because of what you had stated this morning. I didn't
Okay.
I
Did he
I
play it all
haven't
in the
tracked.
first 2 series? Tom Me just sitting in our charting, so we have better answers for this after probably after we're done with this. But did Washington play
I
it all in the first 2 series? Do you remember?
well, I do have the chart now,
Okay, if
by
you
the
want to pull it
way.
up, yeah, and maybe we can talk this thing through along. Let me get to the next question here really quickly, and
All right,
then you
I've
got it.
got Washington here with let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 snaps out of the first uh thir- 13 looks like.
Okay, so yeah, he was playing early. I mean, that's basically what my
All
impression of
right.
it watching it live. And then he played 3 the rest of the way. I think it was. I think he played 9 total.
He played let's see, one his next snap after that initial one came, it looks like 11:05 of the second quarter. And then after that, 6:45 of the second quarter. I don't see him playing another snap after the half. So
Yeah.
it very well could be a good chance that he aggravated that groin.
Right. That was my impression because there's no way. I mean, even if the plan was to play McLeod more in the slot, there's no way Washington would get the goose egg in the second half and overtime where the team was throwing the ball a lot in some of those situations. So I feel like he probably aggravated that Gordon, which is a pretty common thing to do. So it would track. But we'll see. And well, actually, we probably won't see because Tomlin won't update us until a week from tomorrow. So, but that's my strong suspicion.
Yeah, God bless Tommy. Ain't it great to look at these?
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
6:44 left in the first quarter, or in the second quarter, was Washington's last
Yeah.
snap of the game.
There's if that's intentional, then then James Washington should ask a trade tomorrow. Because I mean, my goodness, you lose Juju, and if that's the plan for
Right.
Washington is less than 10 snaps and nothing in the second half, that's unacceptable.
And really, look, looking at it, looks like there was some Claypool in the slot kind of up until that happened, and very little Claypool in the slot after that for obvious reasons, I think, at that point there.
Right.
So, especially later on when they used a little bit more, I think 11 personnel on top of it there. So, I don't know. Uh, like you said, we're not going to find out about this until, until way after the bye week there.
Right, and he could be
If
healthy
we,
by
it,
then, and Tomlin never mentions it,
right,
so maybe
right.
we'll never find out. Let me go through some questions here a little bit quicker. I know we have a lot to get to. F483 at the end of the game in OT, bend down the ball to position it in the middle of the field. Why after that did they kneel again, this time in victory formation? Was it a flex by Tomlin? I don't think it was a flex. It might have been they wanted to again center the ball up a little bit better because Ben kind of had to flop his way over. I'm not 100% sure why they did that or not, but that was a decision, obviously. I don't have any thoughts on why they kneeled that after
Not, no, who
Ben
knows? There might have
went
been a
down.
spot on the field, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
Boz said he didn't care where it was spotted. No one asked him about it, but maybe they just Danny Smith had a feeling of where that ball should be at. Maybe they were in like a divot or something. They didn't like where the ball. I don't know. Who knows? Ryan says, "How do you feel about the improvements from Green and Dots in the last couple of weeks? I don't think either of them have a super high ceiling, but those stable guys are so important to build on. I think they both have talent and upside. I mean, I don't know how you define super high ceiling, but they've improved. This whole line's improved, obviously. So the collective growth, individual growth is no surprise. I got to go through the tape, obviously, from this game, but you're seeing both guys improve. I just think they still have a ways to go and still are making their mistakes, both Dotson and Kendrick Green, but steps in the right direction.
oh, absolutely, and that I don't know, that might have been Green's best game. To be honest with you, and pretty
Yeah,
close to that or the Green Bay game, because he played well in the Green Bay game, I thought, as well too. So I think his top 2 games right now, and I haven't watched the all 22 all the way through on the Seattle game enough to comment on it, but at least on the TV tape version, it looked good. So I would say right now, Kendrick Green's best 2 games of the season so far were Green Bay and Seattle. Probably Green Bay a little bit better than the Seattle game
okay.
overall, but I think those two games will serve as his top 2 games so far in his young career.
Russ Openstein in the chat. Hi, Alex and Dave in chat. Victory Monday. Hi, Russ. Hope you're doing well. Crawford's and Gray's booksellers. That first defensive play by TJ Watt in OT was crazy. Wasn't even his best play. Which one? Was it the sack? Was it the tackle for loss? And then obviously he had the forced fumble at the end. But yeah, Watt just took over OT. Him and Hayward willing the team to victory.
He was in another when writing up that run by Travis Homer there. those runs that I mentioned, Seattle ran the ball what 7 more times after that at the end of the
Hmm.
after the third quarter. Watt was in on 4 of those 7 tackles. He was in on 4 of those 7 run tackles
Wow.
the rest of the game. Now I think Solo's on I think 2 or 3 of them there on top of it. So he really came to life in that fourth quarter period
Yeah.
and overtime, obviously.
Absolutely took over for sure. Next question here. Comment comes from Reginald Rivers. Trey Norwood was my player of the game yesterday over TJ Watt. Wow, I'm beginning to like him, and that's Edmonds' replacement. I don't know if Norwood has the strong safety build to live in the box the way that Edmonds does, but certainly Norwood, I think, can begin to carve out a bigger and bigger role. Next year, you could talk about nickel role, more of an advanced sub package role, akin to what Cam Sutton did early in his career and throughout as he progressed and got better. I think that's a very similar track Trey Norwood is on right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's strong safety material, but definitely a guy that you can do a lot of things with, from a dime and standpoint. Obviously, you know, hopefully be the guy that can provide you some depth at the free safety position. Got it, you know. Hopefully you don't need it, but he's growing into a guy that you think might could be that next guy up.
Yeah. Storm Woodside asking why doesn't this team just trade James Washington if they're not going to use him? As Dave and I discussed, probably injury related there on Washington. I doubt it was intentional. If it is, though, then that might be a more fair question. Andresa, good to hear from you, says, did we miss our linebacker coach last night? I know Butler took those duties, but the play by play guidance may not have been there because he has the whole defense to worry about. Yeah, Jerry Olsavsky not there last night. I think Ben confirmed that after the unfortunate death of his wife earlier in the week. It's hard to say. Obviously, I'm sure it has some sort of impact. Can you blame the missed tackles on that? I probably don't. It didn't seem like there were a bunch of communication busts. I mean, there were some guys out of gaps, but in terms of like blown coverages and stuff like that, I didn't see that. So it's a good question. Again, did it have an impact? Probably. How much of an impact? It's hard to quantify, but I don't think that's the reason why this defense struggles. They played great in the first half, so it wasn't like they came out of the gates, poor or anything like that. Let's see. Next question comes from Crawford's and Gray's talking about James Washington. I think we've covered that pretty well. I wouldn't read too much into it there. Mike Odessa was also asking about Diontae Johnson, so I think we answered that earlier as well. D. Heverly says, "Good evening, fellas. Do Yins expect Anthony Miller to be on the 53 for the Cleveland game?" We'll see.
Mm.
It depends on how quickly he picks up the playbook, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked by it. Did Cody White play at all last night? I don't think he played a single offensive snap.
I don't think he did. Zero offensive snaps. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe White gets pushed out for Anthony Miller, but yeah, I think if they want another slot receiver, someone that gives them some more versatility, then yeah, I could certainly see Miller getting swapped for Cody White at some point, and maybe by week 8.
Yeah, will they practice tomorrow and then
No,
then then right off into the sunset or
I doubt it. Usually they get this week off and they'll come back
yeah.
like Monday, Tuesday, and then practice Wednesday. So I mean, I don't know if Tomlin plans it, but probably not.
Yeah, I think it's I would say it's probably I don't know 50-50. There's a lot for him to learn, man, when it comes to that kind of stuff, and he's got to be trusted if he's going to play any kind of meaningful snaps up there. So I would say 50-50 for the Browns game. Now after that, I could really see him making his debut against his former team, the Bears. Right, the Bears after the Browns. There, that feels like a more logical time frame for him. But it's not out of the question. I don't think that, and it depends on what's happening with Washington and that if he's dealing with any type of injury as well too. So I would say maybe 50-50 chance of the Browns game. I would like his chances maybe a little bit more against the Bears the following week.
Yeah, we'll see for sure. Mr. Tummy, that's his name. Offensive averages. The offense averages 19 and a half points per game. Alex, how much higher does this need to increase to be competitive? I'd have to look at what is the NFL average. Whatever the NFL average is probably the number. You have an average offense with a good defense that can be elite in certain games, and I think good special teams overall. And if you do that, that's a recipe for being competitive. So I'm assuming the average is higher than 19 and a half. It's probably 22 to 24 points per game. So that's the mark I'll set it at, but I don't have an exact, number to offer you.
I mean, are they even averaging as much
Mm,
as the 2018 team did without Roethlisberger?
I believe that team averaged 18 and a half or something around there. So I think they're slightly above it after these last two games.
Right now the Steelers are what, 19.5,
And a half,
right?
according to Mr. Tummy. Yes.
Ooh.
So, do you know what is
If
the NFL
it,
average in points? Do you know? Do you have that
it,
number?
it I'm looking at the league rankings right here. So just kind of going by that and not having a firm number, looks around 23,
Okay.
24,
Yeah.
right around in there.
Now, that's the number I picked at 22 to 24. So that roughly, again, it changes game by game. When you're playing KC, you probably need more than 24. When you're playing in Chicago, maybe a little bit less, but that's the number I'll give you. Deplorable BR in all caps. I'll read it verbatim here. I won't yell it though. Poor tackling, poor tackling, poor tackling, poor tackling, poor tackling. All right,
Hmm.
noted. It was poor tackling. You were correct in your exclamatory fashion. Simon says, great game by Trey Norwood last night. What do you think his best position will be long term, though? I mean, I'm just focused on the next game for Trey Norwood. It could be a Cam Sutton kind of Swiss Army knife thing, which is, like I said, how Tomlin called him when they drafted him this year. So it could be more of a slot type of role, probably. But free safety, it's got those kind of skills. So I think he can wear different hats. Let's see. Next question comes from, it's a comment actually from Sean, American Patriot. I want to read it. As someone who suffered an ACL repair, medial meniscus repair, ACL replacement, and a total knee replacement, I can say it took 2 years to totally trust my knee. Bush is doing great at 1 year. Well, I'm glad you're doing better, Sean. That sounds like a horrific knee injury. And I think it's commendable that Bush has been available and healthy and practicing and all those things, but it is the NFL and the standard is different, and you got to make plays overall. Otherwise, teams will move on and find someone who can. So I think we can have a different bar to set for in the critique of Devin Bush, beyond what the average person has to deal with. Let's see. Next question comes from Kenneth Jackson. Hey guys, I hope you have been well. Is there a reason that Canada's offense does not include more targets to the tight end? Last night was the first time they made an effort to include them. Dave, what are your thoughts on the targets or lack thereof to tight ends?
Oh, I mean, for one thing, Ben doesn't push the football down the field very often. Second thing, you hadn't had a lot of trust in, I don't think, in Ebron at this point. They don't do a lot with Ebron down the seam. It seems like it's been a lot of stuff to the outside, and obviously a lot of RPO stuff on top of it lately as well too. And it was good to see them get Fryermuth more involved. It was good the week before that to see kind of the designed screen to Gentry. Uh, who knows what would have happened on that fake tunnel smoke screen, if you will. Over on that right side, they got batted down at the line of scrimmage. That Ray McLeod broke up that interception
Hmm.
there. Uh, as far look, here's the thing. How many times is your offense going to run, particularly through your tight end being the first option? Also, you know.
Right. In this offense, not often.
Right. So I mean, it's not what they do at this point right now. Now, if they put in, some more, RPOs kind of dependent on making that linebacker a conflict player. Maybe you see a few of those kind of quick kind of pop passes, if you will. 6, 7 yards past the line of scrimmage if they get the conflict player leaning in the wrong direction or whatnot. But it doesn't feel like they really feel like the offense goes through the tight end right now, and the progression goes that way.
Yeah, I would say a couple different things quickly on that. A, when Juju was healthy, their strength was within the receivers, and so of course they're going to throw to receivers more often. They're going to play more 11 personnel. B, when you have a pretty heavy rotation between Fryermuth, Ebron, and Gentry, it's not like one guy's playing 100% of the snaps, so those kind of targets and stuff get distributed up. So instead of one guy maybe having 5 catches for 50 yards, and it looks like, oh, that guy had a pretty good game, it's two guys with 2 catches for 25 yards each, and so the numbers don't look quite as eye catching when it's broken up like that. And then when Najee Harris is, tied for the team lead in receptions with 34, he kind of functions as that tight end role, that security blanket in this offense. So all those things combined probably leads the answer to what it is. And it's no surprise to see Fryermuth, his role in this offense increase the first game without Juju and that kind of security blanket, middle of the field type of guy. Once Juju's out, Fryermuth kind of replaces that, and you see his production go up. So I think you'll see the tight end production, Fryermuth in particular, increase going forward.
And also, look at who you're dealing with. Apologies to Pat Frymuth, but he's not Darren Waller either.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, for sure. Ross Swisher, do you guys think they should have traded Ebron since Gentry plays more snaps and Raider moved up in the practice squad? No, I mean Ebron's not going to get you much, and Ebron's playing more than Gentry. I don't know about how the snap count was in last night's game. Maybe it was closer, but for the season, Ebron's playing about half the snaps, and Gentry's been around 20%. So I don't think it's accurate to say that Gentry plays more snaps than Eric Ebron. But no, I'm fine with having the three tight ends this team has. Those guys are playing well enough, especially Fryermuth and Gentry's made a lot of strides. So, but I have no interest in trading Eric Ebron.
Look, especially now that after you had restructured Ebron's contract, what do you save from a cap perspective? Not much at all. I mean, because you've already now you're 6 weeks into the season, so remember you got to prorate what's left over of his established base salary at this point, and then also that's under $1 million now at this point because of the restructuring, because of what you've already paid him into this season. So on top of that, it you have the roster displacement. Okay, oh, let's say you take him off the roster, somebody's got to replace him. And let's say that's even at a minimum salary of $660,000. I mean, what have you saved there? $400,000 in cap space, and what happens if you have a tight end go down or something?
Right.
So it's it'd be one thing if you were going to get like a fifth round draft pick and free up $3 million and $4 million in cap space, but that's just not the case here. And I mean, is there anybody out there that's going to give you more than a sixth round? To me, you'd be amazing if you even got a sixth round pick.
Hmm.
Is it worth diminishing your tight end depth for basically just a six-round draft pick, because you're not going to save anything cap wise as far as that goes there. And look, you can lose your how injuries are in the NFL from week to week there. So it's just not worth it unless a team's going to give you like a fifth or fourth round draft pick for them. And I just can't see any team willing to do that at this point in the season. Now, if you could get a fourth or fifth for him, then
Hmm.
let's talk maybe. But unless you can get that, I don't see it. I don't see the gain by doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Crawford's and Gray's book. So someone said the Steelers should get Kenny Pickett. I thought that was a good idea. Yeah, Pickett's played well. I haven't studied him super closely, but the Steelers, of course, I'm sure are familiar with him. And this guy might be one of the most talked about quarterbacks right now, along with your boy Carson Strong. So Pickett's having a really good season for the Panthers.
Yeah, but when you look at this class, at least the way it's shaping up, I don't want to draw any hard definitives yet until I've watched a lot more tape on these guys. I mean, it's not the Marino class by any stretch of the imagination. It's not the '04 class by any stretch of the imagination, at least from what I can tell so far. So if indeed, let's say Pickett is, say, one of the top two quarterbacks in this year's class, are the Steelers going to draft early enough
Right.
to get a guy like that? From
Doubtful.
where you sit right now, it's kind of doubtful, right? And you kind of wonder if they would trade up and sell off the picks to go get a guy like that as well too. I kind of doubt it. Now, it's still got a long way to go. Anything can obviously happen there, but from where I sit right now, I would take a bet that Kenny Pickett will not be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, it's a dark throw of quarterbacks, and so it's hard to peg one guy. But Pickett at least has played well. David Osis took a nap, just woke up. I know you made the drive back to Maryland after the game last night, David O. So glad you got home safely, and hope you got some good sleep. Mike Adesso, after the bye, what would you do with the line? Leave as is, put in Banner at right tackle, and move Chooks back to left tackle and bench Moore, et cetera, et cetera. I would probably leave it as is. They're playing pretty well. You don't want to mess up with that too much. They're kind of gelling and working together pretty well. If you do anything, I would say put in Banner at right tackle and bench Chooks, but I think they played well enough to warrant continuing to stay together as a group. So I would leave it as is, Mike.
Yeah, you wanted to get to a point where you had some continuity, right? You didn't have that for all the preseason now, and now you got a little bit of continuity. You've got some back-to-back wins. You got a running back with a run success rate of over 50%. I think as a team, it's also over 50% at this point. Now the pass protect, there hadn't been too many Ben Roethlisberger oomph faces lately. On top of it there, so unless you get more of a reason to kind of change it, I don't think you change it just to change it right now. Now, these things have a funny way of working themselves out, unfortunately. And Dan Moore Jr. went down with some sort of hip injury. We obviously don't know, if that's going to prevent him from playing from after the bye and all like that. But assuming Dan Moore is healthy enough to play, I think you just keep it the way it is right now. Apologies to Zach Banner.
Yeah, I'm with you, but that's a good point about Dan Moore. We don't know what that injury is. He did not come back for last night's game, and so in that situation, if Moore is unavailable, then I would put a core for left tackle, and I would they go. They would go Banner at right tackle, I guess, and have Haig be the backup.
Mm.
You don't
Yeah.
think so?
I mean, no, I think you're
You think
right.
so?
I mean, you know, when Haig was signed, I think I remember saying specifically, man, here's us not having to see Joe Haig play left tackle. Well,
Well,
that's out the window now.
yeah.
So
I think I think they would go Banner at right tackle if for nothing else. A, because they paid him more money, and then B, if Banner was the backup and Chooks went down, then you'd have to flip Haig to left tackle, and Banner comes in at right tackle and moving extra pieces. If Banner's starting, then Haig just moves in at either tackle spot. And that's just an easier, cleaner way to replace guys. Let's see. I had a question here and I lost it. Let me just try to scroll back to about 10 minutes left. You guys have a super chat because we might not get to every single question. Please be sure to send it. Let's see. K Jackson, Pittsburgh. Hey guys, can you imagine how good the defense could have been with JJ Watt? I know it was a want and not a need, but without Stephon Tuitt, it certainly would have been interesting. Yeah, it would have been. Wormley's done well. You've been talking up Wormley all year, Dave, and I think he's playing some good ball for him.
yeah, I remember during the offseason I said Chris Wormley owes the Steelers some snaps because of obviously getting hurt. Now look, if there's one guy that came back from being injured last season that played decent towards the end of last season, I think I highlighted that as well too, that it was him. But just not enough snaps. But I've thought so far this season he's been above the line overall, and I think he's filled in admirably for Stephon Tuitt. Now, if we're talking about the Stephon Tuitt that played last season, there's no comparison there, and hopefully that's the guy that the Steelers get back here either against the Browns or soon thereafter.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Couple more questions here. Just scrolling through. Any idea when we see Anthony Miller? That's from Horace ankle. Yeah, maybe after the bye. That is possible. Let's see if there's anything else here in questions or if it's just commentary. Xavier Edwards. Here's a question: Worst Steelers draft bust, Artie Burns or Jarvis Jones? Who was the bigger bust to you, Dave?
Had to be Artie Burns, I think. At
Yeah.
least Jarvis gave you a little something. It wasn't much, but he gave you a little something there. Artie, yeah, Artie really didn't, and I think you could see both those kind of coming. At least from what I watched on the college tape on both those guys. I warned everybody about Jarvis way back when, and that's back when you didn't have much, much of any kind of just some YouTube games out there at the time from Georgia, but just it didn't look that good there. And the thing about Artie Burns too in his college tape is he he wasn't ever a full-time player even at Miami. Was taken off the field and was an underclassman on top of it, and just really seemed to be more of a height, weight, speed. We Mr. Rennie wants us to get a cornerback in here. William Jackson the
Yeah, I
third's
knew that was coming.
off the board, so well we better get one, and Artie's the next one that qualifies off on the list here. But I would call Artie Burns the bigger bust than Jarvis Jones, but they are definitely right up there, 1A and 1B.
Agreed. Maybe it's harder for Burns because when you're a corner and you're bad, it's a little more noticeable because you're giving up big plays and touchdowns and things like that. For a pass rusher, it's kind of just you're more invisible in some sense. Jarvis at least played, I think, semi decent run defense and had a forced fumble, I think, in the playoffs. So he kind of has at least one like notable play in a big game under his belt. And so yeah, I think Artie Burns the bigger bust than Jarvis Jones. Tim Chase, did Bugs go down in the game with an injury? Yeah, he did. That was in the third quarter after one of the several long runs that Seattle had. I think it was a groin, some sort of, pulled something. And so he did not come back, and we'll see if he's back after the bye. Josh Greer, why does Minka have the worst coverage grade out of all 84 safeties who have played significant snaps? That's from PFF. I mean, Minka's had his issues. He'd give up a long touchdown to Henry Ruggs. That's going to ding you. But I don't think he's been the worst coverage safety in football this year. I think Josh made a good point about Daniel Sorensen having a much better grade than Minka, which seems not right.
Yeah, we don't know all the specifics what go into some of those grades and how weighted they are in certain areas and missed tackles and all like that. So I don't know if it was that coverage grade alone
Josh says
or
coverage grade. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I don't have a clue on that. Look, overall, I think PFF does a good job as a whole. Obviously, I differ with several things on them. I don't think they deserve you know the amount of abuse that maybe you see out there. I mean, they're obviously not perfect, and there's so much stuff that's subjective. That they try to do, and you could have if you're not having the same person grade every single play, you're going to get some differences in there, whether you like it or not. On there. But as far as why, no, no, I do not think he is the worst coverage safety in the NFL. But on top of it, I don't think Minka's having a fantastic season.
No, that's fair for sure. Jason Bodine with the biweekly Hello Daleks super not super chat but just chat. Thank you, Jason, for popping in here. Just a couple minutes left though, so we'll answer just a few more questions. NRG, I have a question. Who should we sign or trade for on offense? Probably no one. I don't really have any picks and nothing glaring in terms of need. I think it's another question that came from K Jackson about other in-season roster moves. Really, those things are based off of injury. Your roster's kind of set, and usually the only things that change that, generally speaking, are injuries that strike. The way that this team traded for Avery Williamson last year, the way they traded for I think Nick Vanette when someone got hurt, and so usually those moves are made out of necessity based on something you didn't expect, like an injury.
Right, from where I sit right now, unless it is a starter related type thing. Yeah, I can't see them making any deals.
As Trooper, can we get Big Ben's record when throwing 40 passes or more? Man, I would love to right now. It's going to be a little hard to effort here on the live stream. It's a good question. He threw 40 last night and they won, so there's one for you. I don't have the actual record though, obviously for all
Hold
those
on a
games.
minute here. What's the let's see, career?
40 or more pass attempts. What's his record? It's probably not great. Generally, more quarterbacks throw. If you're throwing 40 times, it's unless you're Brady, you're not winning a lot of games.
I don't have it. There's a lot of L's up in here though.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
probably 500 at best, probably under 500.
right, I don't have the exact number. Yeah, I can't drill it down that quick.
Trooper, if you're on Twitter by any chance or in the Depot comment section, ask again and I can pull it for you a little bit later. It's just hard to do with a couple minutes left here, trying to do it during the live stream. Rick McKee, with the production that Najee has given in the receiving game, have you softened on them drafting him in the first, or will it be a while for that? I think Dave and I are both comfortable with him being the first round pick. So maybe other people that were more anti running back, maybe better to ask them. But yeah, I have no issues with the team taking Najee Harris 24. I didn't have a big issue with it then. I didn't, 100% like love or endorse it, but certainly looking back on it now, I think that was a fine pick to make. He's a good player, and and the goal is to get good players in the first round.
Right, but I don't think you can draw a line on any player right now.
Sure.
Let's see, if he can stay healthy, and keep producing on top of it. There, I just, I've always been of the mind for several years now about the running back position and the fungibility related to it. Uh, I understand why they did it, and if you're going to do it, it makes sense to burn maybe more of a later first round pick than it obviously does a earlier first round pick. Although you have guys like the guy that's going to be running tonight, right? Derrick Henry was picked. Wasn't he picked kind of early in the first round? Wasn't he overall? What was he
Oh
overall? You
man,
remember?
that's a good question. I don't remember what Derrick Henry's overall was. Maybe someone in the chat can answer that. But yeah, obviously a very valuable pick and player for Tennessee.
Let's see. He was actually a second round pick, 45th overall.
Okay.
So what a bargain when you get that type of back, second round, 45th overall. Look, it's good. Yeah, he better be catching some balls. If you got a first round draft, here's the thing that I said about Najee Harris and drafting a running back in the first round. You better get one that can, if you're going to do it, you better get one that can stay on the field quite a bit. Well, Najee Harris has done that, except for some cramps here and there. Two, you better get one that can do it all, pass protect. And pass protection needs some work. I think he can stand to improve in that area. I think he will improve in that area. And you better get one that can catch the football out of the backfield on top of running the football. And we definitely have seen him do that to the tune of 30 something receptions already. And oh yeah, as we said earlier in this chat alone, he's got a success rate of over 50%. And that's something that was mandatory if you're going to spend a first round draft pick on him. So far, so good. Absolutely on it. But I mean, we're only 6 games into the season, into his NFL career on top of it.
Yeah. Crawford's and Gray's booksellers. When do you go live? Dave and I go live every other Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So after Halloween, it'll be what is that, November 1st. We the next day we go live. As Trooper, do you think Malik Willis will drop in the draft like Lamar Jackson did? Steelers' chances of getting him, who knows? I mean, probably will be available by the time the Steelers pick, but that depends on the rest of his college season at Liberty, the pre-draft process, where the Steelers are picking, what they do or don't do in the offseason, what happens with Ben, all those kinds of variables. So that's it's a question to ask, but it's a difficult one to answer here in mid-October.
Oh man, so far out. It's so hard. I like trying to just
Yeah,
learn more about
right.
these guys right now. Learn their names. Learn what positions they play more than anything. I have found myself being a lot more ahead than I am normally this time, but I mean I'm nowhere even close to putting any list together yet,
Yeah.
and won't be for some time.
Same here. Tim Chase, how well does Hayward play nose? He's only had to do it for, I don't know, 5, 6 snaps this year in emergency situations. I guess he can do it okay, but obviously, you want him more maybe soloed up on a guard or something like that than kind of getting double teamed in the middle. But of course, he's getting double teamed in the run game from his, three tech spot quite a bit as well. And let's see if there's any more questions here to ask or answer. I think there was a comment here from Berg City 6X champion, 6 times champions. Hey, fellas, I would love to see Sims Jr. for Ray Ray and Miller for White. So he would like to see the back of the receiver depth chart shuffled around. I think you'll see Anthony Miller at some point, and probably at Cody White's expense. I don't know about Steven Sims for McLeod unless McLeod puts the ball on the ground at some point in the season.
Right.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap things up. Please enjoy the Monday night game tonight. Enjoy your victory Monday. Enjoy the Steelers bye week as well. Go outside for once on a Sunday. I'm gonna try to do that this weekend and see what the sun is like and what that's all about. So, as always, thank you guys for being here. There'll be an archive of this on my YouTube channel and on Steelers Depot a little bit later. And Dave Bryan, as always, thank you for being here.
Thank you for doing this, Alex, and peace and love, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I appreciate you guys hanging out with us, asking questions. Appreciate you guys for the super chats as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.